Welcome, listeners, to a brand new episode of Technology Questions Answered, Episode 8, and let's talk about building your personal computer. This is your host, Steve Smith, founder of Z Axis Productions and Digital Technologies Consultant. I would like to present to you the utter truth big companies do not want you to know. It's often cheaper, and it's by far easier than you believe to build your very own personal computer. To begin, I suggest you hit pause, get a piece of paper, or refer to my show notes for the list of pieces by name you will need to make your own computer. Best of all, you can bring this list to any computer store that sells pieces and ask for each one. And after I explain to you a few of the terms and how to look them up, you'll also have the ability to verify before purchase how to make sure these pieces go together. So let's start off with that list. I will be helping you build a whole entire computer, and these are all the equipment you need. Motherboard, micro ATX, ATX, or extended eATX, processor, Intel or AMD, RAM, usually three types defined by speed and customization, graphics adapter, if not already included in the motherboard, and the more memory this card has, the bigger you can buy a screen, by the way. Power supply, the most important piece of the computer, also powers everything in it. Computer case, usually separated in defined sizes like micro ATX, ATX, and eATX, extended ATX. ATX is the typical size of a computer box, and for most provides the ability to expand to add on new hardware in your computer. You will also need a hard drive, an optical drive, DVD or Blu-ray, a computer monitor, depending on your graphics adapter. You can buy some really nice large ones, however going over 22 inches may cause an inability to read text on the screen, and LCD have fixed screen ratios. A keyboard, go to the store, put your hands on it, and type something. Only buy something you feel comfortable on, I'll explain later. And mouse, try before you buy. Again, like keyboards, only buy something you feel comfortable using. Now to the fun part. I will explain what each piece is and how they interact with each other and dispel any inaccurate myths. So let's start with the motherboard and computer case. The size of the motherboard and computer case are based on standards set by the computer industry a long time ago. Most of you will most likely only need a micro ATX board, and most of them have onboard graphic adapters. There are three types of motherboards, and they are micro ATX, ATX, and extended ATX. Like I said, most of you will most likely only need a micro ATX board, but before you dismiss the other two, how about I tell you the advantages of the other two? ATX has 7 expansion slots, and extended ATX can have up to 10 expansion slots. And this means you can add multiple graphic adapters, wireless cards, TV tuners, gaming equipment, sound cards, etc. Now the computer case, like I said, is based on the size of the motherboard. If you decide to get a computer case for your computer, I suggest an ATX size box unless you want an extended ATX motherboard. The ATX box is made to hold ATX and micro ATX boards. It also allows for future expansion, also for a good airflow, which is extremely important. And make sure you have a fan on the front of the case, one on the rear of the case, just above the expansion slots, and one in the side of the box. This will prevent your computer from overheating, which accounts to many problems with motherboards. Besides these three sizes, there is also a difference between getting an Intel board, an AMD board, one for NVIDIA Sly, one for ATI Crossfire, and a conventional graphic adapter capability. If you choose Intel, my suggestions are i3, i5, or i7. The i5 is a midline usage for light gaming, word processing, multimedia, and the i7 processor is for gamers and heavy task users or power users. If you opt for AMD, we are currently in the AM3 standard, which means you can opt for dual core, triple core, or quad core. It's the same principle as the Intel series. Most of the motherboards have a single graphics adapter slot. So have a conventional graphic adapter design. Those who want to get multiple graphics card designs will have to deal with ATI Crossfire and the NVIDIA Sly. There are only two things I need to say about those. One, they have to be all identical graphics cards to work. And secondly, you will only get a 10% increase in performance, and only under heavy gaming or 3D rendering. Otherwise, you'll have no other visible increase to performance. My suggestion is to spend more money on one graphics adapter for gaming other than on multiple. The processor is the brain in the computer. As I just explained, you have several types and tiers. If you want to have a specific type of processor, like Intel, you will have to learn how to identify which board belongs to which before you can buy the pieces and realize they do not match. Computer stores will have staff that can help you. Ask friends, family, coworkers, and other clients what they think about certain stores. In the greater Montreal area, I suggest Mastervox and Microbytes. Remember, there is a service counter, and that's where the employees who know about computers will be. Now about identifying the processor that belong to which board. If you have an Intel board, most model types begin with a P. And if you want an AMD processor, most of the time it starts with an M. But you can go further than that. You can go to the internet and type the processor choice and motherboard choice together, and you'll find that they do not work together, or they do. If you want a suggestion about motherboards, go to Asus, Gigabyte, or MSI. I have never had any problems finding any support for issues. They also have clearly marked specifications which explain which processor goes on which motherboard. Now let's talk RAM. This is short-term memory. Now I will explain to you something before we begin. If you're going to use Windows, 32-bit environments use less than 4 gigs of RAM. 64-bit environments can use up to 8 gigs of RAM. There is no way to add any more memory to Windows because this is all based in math and it's not possible to assign more memory. Now if you want speed and memory, let's talk. We have 3 tiers of RAM, no matter what board we have. You will find that there are several types of RAM as well. There is what I call low speed, mid speed, and high speed versions of every type of RAM. The high speed version also, at least usually, supports overclocking. Now remember that research you're already doing on your processor and motherboard? Part of those specifications say what type of RAM is to be used. Currently you have DDR2 and DDR3. The current models of boards should now be DDR3 only, but you can sometimes buy previous versions of motherboards. Do your research, and you will avoid mistakes. You can also email me if you're really confused. I will help as many people as I can. My suggestion for RAM is mid-speed for conventional users, and high speed, the one with the higher clock speed in megahertz, in DDR3, that's 1600 megahertz, for gamers. Now the graphics card, the holy grail of computing. Without this, forget your computer. It's just not going to work. We will all presume that no one is going to make a ATI Crossfire or NVIDIA Sly setup. The prices range from a few $20 bills to hundreds of dollars. You can buy a powerful graphics card for just under $150 if you shop around. I bought a 512 megabyte graphics adapter for $129 at the time at Microbytes. Now, if you're a gamer and you want to be able to play any game, I'd opt for a gigabyte graphics card version. It costs a little more, but you'll get hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of lag-free fun. If you're only looking for something to go on Facebook or doing homework, I suggest not going below 256 megs on the graphics card. Now, the power supply. Let's get rid of any myths right now. Not every power supply is made equal. Also, it's not a good idea to get a power supply with a high wattage. Buy according to your usage. Most new motherboards have an electrical processing unit, or EPU. And if you buy a mid-level or high-end power supply, they will also have EPUs as well. This means you require less wattage for the same computer than you needed before because not all the circuits are on all the time. Only circuits that require electricity use electricity. This is a green idea that's also a money saver. Also, while we are on the talking power supply, you do have two types, the conventional and the modular. Conventional power supplies are bound to having all the cables, even those not used, inside your box. This can reduce airflow and make your computer hotter. Modular power supplies have removable cable sets, allowing you to have better airflow. Keep in mind, the more you put in a computer, the higher the wattage has to be. So read the manual online before you buy to know how much power you will need in your new power supply. If you decide you're going to be serious when building your computer, spend a little more money on the power supply, and it should never be an issue. And if you have ever listened to a previous episode, please use an uninterruptible power supply instead of a surge bar to protect your investment. So let's talk hard drives. Depending on what you do, you will need a varying amount of space. You can buy up to 2 terabytes, even more soon. You should at least get 80 gigs, but I recommend at least 320 to 500 gigabytes depending on what you're going to do with it. If you have a lot of movies, audio, or plan to do any kind of editing of video, go for 1 to 2 terabytes to have plenty of space. The scratch files are often huge. 15 minutes of audio for this podcast comes out to 200 gigs of video, and I just have a topic played before compression, and that's for YouTube. As for optical drives, you will need at the very least a DVD-ROM, but I suggest you opt for a DVD burner or Blu-ray if you intend to have a lot of files to back up. A standard DVD burner is only about $40. Now the keyboard and mouse. You have to buy these, and I suggest you make sure you're comfortable with them before you buy them. A keyboard or mouse you cannot stand may injure your wrists and forearms. Remember to take routine breaks to lower the chances of carpal tunnel syndrome, which is an injury to the underside of the wrist caused by badly made or chosen keyboards and mouses. You do not have to spend a lot, but I recommend you be careful in your choice and spend a little more on these devices. Remember to keep your arms at 90-degree angle while typing and read all the safety information in the box with your mouse and keyboard. And finally, now let's talk about the screen. If you already own a monitor and you're happy with it, we're done here. If you want to buy a new screen, I suggest no bigger than 22 inches. If you're wondering why, it's all about how you're seated in front of your computer. Good posture is important, and your eyes should meet the top of the screen without raising your head to avoid neck injuries. If you wish to watch any digital copyrighted materials, please make sure you buy an HDCP enabled screen and a DVI-D cable. Otherwise the screen will be fuzzy. This is copyright protection, by the way. Also, for those who have problems with sight, you may want to have a friend install your operating system for you and have them enable the accessibility functions for the operating system. So now we have all the pieces, we need to install an operating system. Forget about installing Mac OS X operating system. You're required to buy an Apple computer to have it. So that leaves us with two choices, Linux and Microsoft Windows. If you're new to computers, I do suggest Microsoft Windows because virtually all software sold in stores is made to work with Windows. If you're feeling adventurous, you may opt to install Linux, and since it's free, you'll save several $100s in operating system costs. But keep in mind, you cannot necessarily buy software in store. However, you can download most of them for free legally via the Software Explorer in most versions of Linux. I have links to Ubuntu in previous versions of episodes. You may also want to listen to the episode and view the show notes. I may continue to add more in the show notes, so go to the show notes during the week to see if I have added anything. Otherwise, I will mention them in the next episode. Next week, I will be explaining how to avoid the most common injury to plague computer users, carpal tunnel syndrome, with tips and tricks and hard-learned lessons and experiences.